Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more seconds for some more to join. Yeah, okay, let's get cracking. All right. So thanks for joining us this afternoon for this very relevant and very trendy topic of compliance. I'm Harriet Robbins. I'm the Cybersecurity Practice Manager at Giacom. So I work with MSPs like yourselves in the UK to build go-to-market strategies around cybersecurity and also educate the SMB market on their vulnerabilities and how to protect themselves against latest threats. So what we've done at Giacom this year, we've put out a lot of content into the market around cybersecurity and how the market can benefit from different tools and different behaviors. But something we've neglected so far is you guys, the MSPs. So we're now speaking directly to you about the importance of your own posture and your compliance. And in the advert for this webinar, you might have seen it said, put on your own oxygen mask first. So hopefully this is what you'll get out of today. So I'll introduce our guests in just a second, and then we'll get kicked off with a live Q&A. But in the just before we do that, we have got a chat and we have got a Q&A running on this webinar. So please use it. If you've got any stories you want to share or any ideas, or if you've got any questions, please chuck them in there. And we will get them at the end of the webinar. My colleague Karina is also on standby to answer any questions you might have. The usual ones are we will be sharing this recording after the webinar, and you'll be able to share the recording with your colleagues as well if you'd like to. Any questions we don't get to, we will find you after the webinar. So without further ado, I think we'll do some introductions. Sam, I'm going to pass over to you.
Hi, thanks. I'm Sam Peters. I'm the Chief Product Officer at ISMS.online. ISMS.online is a SaaS platform helping organisations achieve and manage compliance with standards like ISO 27001, ISO 42001, NIST, and so on. I've been with the organisation a bit over 13 years, and I'm their Chief Information Security Officer as well as my boss, Chief Product Officer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. And on to you, Faisal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are doing well today. My name is Faisal Shabir, and I represent EC Council as a Senior Country Manager for the UK and the European markets. I've been with EC Council now for over 4.5 years. Primarily, my role is looking after trading partners. I work with resellers. I work with enterprise organizations when it comes to our certifications and trainings. So as EC Council, we are today known to be one of the world's largest cybersecurity certification and training body. So this is for individuals, for professionals, not for organizations. So I'm talking about primarily, we are the inventors of the Certified Ethical Hacker program, which probably you must have heard about. But yeah, that's my role here in EC Council. I've been in the information security space for over 13 years so far, coming out of the Middle East and now in UK for over 4.5 years. So that's a small little introduction about me.
Brilliant. Thank you. One of our security specialists is actually doing one of the EC Council courses as well.
Wonderful.
So yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Perfect. Thank you, guys. So let's get started. So we're just going to do a live Q&A. We've got some questions we've prepared for you both. Hope you're ready. So get kicked off. So obviously this is about compliance and the audience here is MSPs. So when we're looking into the market, you often hear secure and compliant used interchangeably, but they do mean very, very different things. So, Sam, I'll come to you first. What would you say the key difference is between secure and compliant, and why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main sort of difference here is security is about actually making sure that, it's protecting the things that need protecting. It's putting multi-factor on, it's doing your patching, it's logging and checking your logs. It's all of those things that actually stop data getting in or out and protect the confidentiality, integrity, availability of what you're trying to do. Compliance is the structured approach you use to manage and evidence security. So it gives you a kind of common, repeatable way of approaching a security objective, and it's demonstrable to customers and partners in terms of the approach you're taking and the way you're doing, and it can be audited by someone else. So they're hand in glove. If you do security without compliance, you're doing it in a kind of ad hoc, unstructured, invisible way. If you do compliance without security, you've just got a load of paper that doesn't actually make you secure.
And if you do one really well with intention, then you're kind of knowingly doing the other one really well at the same time, aren't you? So they do definitely go hand in hand. Faisal, is there anything you'd add on to that?
No, I think I would relate to what Sam has just mentioned because, when you talk about security and compliance, though, they are linked with each other, but definitely they're not the same, right? So as Sam mentioned, compliance is primarily you need to set certain standards and regulations, be it GDPR, be it NIST, be it DORA. But when it comes to security, it is primarily to do with how you, protect your systems, how you protect your data, how do you look at the threats you see in the market and how effectively you protect them. Protect your organization from threats, that is. So that's important, right? But, sometimes what happens is that a lot of organizations, they just use compliance as more of like tick in the box kind of a thing, because, okay, it's an industry standard, it is required, but then, whether they actually comply when it comes to security as well, because, both of them have to go hand in hand together, isn't it? So again, my point of view here would be, though compliance is used as a baseline, but security goes much, much beyond that, right? So it's important to understand that security should in fact lead when it comes to strategy, but compliance should actually define when it comes to the frameworks and the standards aligned. So that's a bit about the question asked, but a good question actually.
I think I'd add as well that neither is optional. In the sense that if you're not secure, you've got a whole problem.
True.
But compliance doesn't just apply to standards like ISO; it applies to regulations like GDPR and NIS and DORA. That you don't have a choice as to whether you comply with it.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Sam.
Especially these days, I mean, we're governed by so much, aren't we? We don't have much choice when it comes to this. And we would have had someone on here, expert in cyber insurance, who would have been backing up those comments as well, because it's so relevant for businesses looking to insure themselves these days. But you've just touched on something, Faisal, and I just want to stay with you for a second. You touched on it being, compliance can just be a bit of a tick box, and you also touched on frameworks. So what are some practical benefits for MSPs in aligning with a framework, which are more than just ticking that box?
So, when it comes to MSPs, primarily, aligning with any sort of a cybersecurity framework, as we just mentioned, be it NIST, be it ISO 27001, it kind of offers a lot of practical benefits, which goes much beyond compliance. So say, for example, MSPs, they work with clients. So having a strong trust with clients, that's extremely important, because when they know that the MSP has those necessary frameworks in place, the trust is automatically maintained, followed by, reducing any sort of a risk they see, based on any sort of best practices around, ensuring that any sort of operational strategy which has been aligned, they are efficient. When it comes to, let's say, incident response plans as well, because that is again aligned within the processes in place. And most important is, again, we know how the MSP market is, right? It's quite a lot of competition. So, having those necessary frameworks in place, ensuring that they have the compliance standards in line, they become far more competitive. I mean, an advantage when it comes to competitiveness is far better when it compares to other MSPs as well. So I think these are certain, let's say, areas, or I would say practical benefits, which MSPs could have if they obviously align to the frameworks.
Yeah. And there is so many frameworks to choose from at the moment, isn't there? So being
Absolutely.
really targeted, having that really wide goal of where you want your business to go is really, really important. And Sam, you are today our resident ISO expert. So how could an MSP use an ISO certification to position themselves slightly differently in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you can try and the message that you will try and convey with a certification in something like ISO 27001, or if you want to push it further into say 42001, if you're working with clients around AI, is that actually you're not just a supplier to that organisation, you're a strategic partner because you've walked the path they're about to walk, and you can take them on that journey with your own experience as much as kind of their sort of learning and development as well. So I think that's a really important way of looking at all of these standards, especially management system standards that are about transforming the way your business thinks and operates, about information security, about AI governance, whatever the particular standard is. It demonstrates a commitment to your clients. It demonstrates that the organisation they're dealing with has a board level engagement with these things. And I think it probably helps you shorten some of the sales cycles because you can clearly stand out and differentiate yourself against a wide background. I think if you think about it, you know, Faisal made some great points around the way that you work with your clients. Standards like this also give you a common and repeatable way to talk about maturity with the organisations you're working with. You know, if you use a framework like 27001 and say, you know, currently you're a 2 out of 5 around network security, these are activities that you might want to undertake over the coming years to build from a 3 to a 4 to a 5. It helps you lay out a roadmap with that customer to think about how you might develop them through the services that you offer as well.
Really, really good suggestions there, and it made me think about, we did a webinar not that long ago, our chief strategy officer with Analysis Mason, and they were looking at SMBs in the market and how many, so what percent of SMBs are looking for a new IT provider, and it turned out 23% of SMBs in the UK were looking for a new IT provider, which is not what we hear from MSPs. We hear the market is very saturated. But having that long-term strategic approach when you're dealing with an SMB can actually save you from your churn. So yeah, something like ISO, something like a certification can be really, really powerful, probably more powerful than we would appreciate when we're just in our day-to-day jobs. So it's really, yeah, really interesting. Thanks, Sam. So thinking of certifications, and obviously, Faisal, this is where you really, really specialise. What are some common pitfalls that MSPs kind of face when they're pursuing certifications?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like when you talk about professionals, cybersecurity professionals, obviously when they have to be qualified, it's always important for them to be certified as well, which will take them to the next level. Similarly, when it comes to MSPs as well, it is extremely important. But then, yeah, some common pitfalls, as I said right in the beginning today, a lot of MSPs, they use compliance probably as a one-time kind of a project, just because it's required, right? So they view that as something like, okay, they set that up and then probably they forget about it. And then again, when the next year comes in, they would want to realign it again. You know, it needs to be more of like an ongoing, you know, ongoing standard, which they should follow on. Right. Even when it comes to, let's say, your executive binds, which means that they, again, look at your budgets, they look at the amount of time needed, they look at the amount of resources needed. You know, that's again another sort of a pitfall, you could say. Documentation is extremely important when it comes to compliance as well. So if documentations are not maintained or not managed in the right way, that is another sort of a burden they could face. Internal training, that's extremely important because you know, your employees within the organization, they need to be trained with the necessary security policies and frameworks, which needs to be relied on as well. So if that is not looked into, then again, that's probably another problem which they could face. Again, you know, when MSPs, definitely they work with security, you know, products and applications, right? So it's more of them relying on the tools, but I think process as well is very, very important, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, these I would say is some of the pitfalls, because as I said, you know, in the beginning as well, today, it's important for organizations for MSPs as well to ensure that those compliance are maintained. So if any of these are not followed through, these are some common pitfalls which you could see down the chain of process and and the work which goes on.
Yeah, and I think that ties in really nicely to what you've also said earlier today, is that whole tick box thing. Someone is looking to gain a qualification or a certification, and they're doing the things or doing the steps to get there, but they're not thinking about the wider plan. They're not thinking, I need this certification because it's going to enhance X, Y, Z. It's, I just need this one thing to tick this box to get it done. And then in a year's time, crap, that comes up for renewal. We need to do that again. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it should be like a sort of a long-term business strategy. It should be a part of their long-term business strategy, right? Because what's more important is that understanding the gaps where they are. So where they fall today, how can compliance really help them, and treating certifications as a very, very important pillar towards their long-term strategy or part of the long-term strategy. That's extremely important for MSSP.
And I think if you look at the way you choose to implement it as well, so taking your example of the not just a tick box, if you implement compliance as a standalone thing separate from the rest of the business, you're missing out on all of the benefit that you get from making this part of how you operate and changing the kind of culture and mindset of the business in the way that it thinks about security and compliance. And I think we are a much better business as a result of having the 27001 certification and thinking about things in those ways.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Sam.
Yeah, agree with that. It's almost like you need to achieve X over here, and in order to achieve that, you need someone in-house who is certified on paper, but actually that certification could give you so many more benefits outside of that one thing you've been chasing. I'm not saying that it's easy to be an MSP, by the way. This is just like one tiny thing they have to consider. Okay, so let's look at, we've talked about a few frameworks which kind of overlap into the regulation space, but there's regulations that are constantly evolving and coming out of the woodwork. There is acronyms coming out of our ears, and there's new ones every day. How can an MSP stay ahead of compliance requirements? And I'll put that one to you, Sam.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to bear in mind here. One, good news, regulation and standards development does not move fast. These things are signalled well in advance of them actually reaching you and your customers. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to kind of tap into what's coming up. I think there's some great resources out there. The NCSC is a great resource here in the UK around standards and things that are coming out, ISO themselves. We put out a blog, Compliance Matters, that highlights some of the kind of changing legislation that's there in the market. But I think it's really important for you to be aware, especially if you are operating within a sector, of what's coming to that sector or a geography as well. We have the GDPR in the EU, which has then spread to a variety of other privacy-related laws across the world. The good news is there seems to be a level of, well, it's two bits of good news. There seems to be a level of not homogenization but standardization going on around some of these things. So if you look at the recent NIS2 directive, that actually aligned very closely to ISO 27001. So yes, it was a directive that organisations needed to follow, but it was very closely aligned to an existing standard. The ISO standards themselves have a common control clause set, that you need to follow. The basic sections 4 to 10 of the standard itself is very, very similar across all of the management systems that they make. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to do something once and it be reusable across these other areas as well. In general, if you have a healthy approach to security and you are already operating a compliance regime, then adapting to a new one coming out should be a minor change or a shift in focus of things you're already doing.
Yeah, because ultimately we're all driving the same correct behaviours, aren't we? No one's going to come in with too much of a curveball. Yeah, but it's down to us to educate our MSPs on what we're hearing, and companies like you guys supporting the market as well, because you can get lost in it. I mean, security in itself and all the acronyms is one thing. Adding compliance, yeah, the letters all blur into one, don't they? So maybe something slightly moving away from that. When it comes to cyber attacks, I do think it's fair to say that MSPs and probably even businesses like mine and like yours do have a bit of a target on their backs. And this is due to a number of environments we manage on behalf of many different clients. So how could compliance offer a layer of protection? Faisal, for you.
Sure. So again, MSSPs, obviously, right? They work with a lot of clients who could be high target clients, right? So for them, and obviously these clients might be working in multiple environments, right? So it's important for them to also sort of implement that, that layer of defense, which is extremely important, right? So in this way, I mean, if you could look at it, having a very structured risk management process, for example. So, guiding MSPs towards identifying what the risks are, how to mitigate risks. That's important. Having an audit-ready process in place. Okay, so, again, for MSSPs, being compliant actually means they have to be prepared for any sort of an external audits or investigations which occurs, right? Because normally during an attack, post-attack, at the time of incident response process in place, right? These are certain things which could highlight. So if certain frameworks and standards are not maintained, that could be an alarm for MSSPs, right? As I mentioned earlier, documentation, ensuring that there is right documentation in place, that's important. Assuring with clients, client assurance, having your due diligence being maintained, having a very secure-based internal culture within the organization. That's extremely important too, which means that, providing the right kind of security trainings, that is where we come in. But yes, providing the right kind of security trainings, ensuring that they have been updated regularly, managing that sort of discipline, that's extremely important. But again, to sort of sum it up, it's extremely important when it comes to compliance. Again, as I said, it is just not a tick in the box. It is just not a paperwork kind of a thing, but it's more to do with how do you build resilience? How do you ensure and prove that you are responsible in front of your client, right? And at the end of the day, helping your clients, ensuring that that sort of an attack, which could occur at a later stage, that is something which could be reduced. So reducing the attack surface, that's extremely important across all the environments which these clients manage. So these are some of the areas I think would definitely, help when it comes to MSSPs.
I think I completely agree with all of that. I would say I've always looked at our external audits, whether that's a pen test, whether that's the ISO 27001 audit, as a learning opportunity. This is someone external who is a professional in their field coming in to look at how you're doing things and give you feedback on how you could be even better at that thing you're doing. So listening to that kind of process as part of the compliance regime, whatever it is, I think it's a real, you should look at it as a positive rather than a burden.
Absolutely, Sam.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole, you don't want to be marking your own homework. So if you paid someone to come in and tell you where your gaps are, then it's really powerful. But I think also what you mentioned around, what we said earlier about MSPs just having that edge, having that something better they can offer to the market to reduce that churn, having a ton of badges against your business name can't do any harm, can it? A lot of work, but certainly worth it. Okay, brilliant. So we've probably got time for one more question. So I think it'd probably be nice to wrap up hearing from each of you, and we'll start with you, Sam. If you have one piece of advice for MSPs who are looking to strengthen both their security and their compliance in today's market, what would it be?
I would suggest taking a standard, choosing one that you think is relevant to the market that you're trying to address, and implementing that standard yourselves. If that's ISO 27001 because you're primarily an IT provider, fantastic. If that's 42001 because you're doing a lot of work around AI, brilliant. but get involved in what that standard is asking of your customers and know that yourself, so you can then go out and work with them. You don't have to get certified. You can start out by looking at the standards, start thinking about how you might go about addressing compliance. You don't have to go to the audit and certification. And I would suggest that any approach you take around putting in place a compliance plan for yourself or for your customers is done using some tooling, right? Yes, you can achieve all of this stuff on spreadsheets, but it pretty quickly gets unmanageable and cumbersome. And I would look at one of the many systems out there like ours that helps you achieve that in a structured and pragmatic way.
As a great bit of advice, spreadsheets are great, but there's better things we could be using, which, helps if someone's off sick or they haven't shared the right document or you haven't got the right access. Yeah, really
visibility about where you are and what's outstanding and where your biggest risk is right now. Those are the sort of benefits that a structured system will bring you.
Yeah, 100%. And all the auditing that comes with it. Yeah. Faisal, what about you? What would be your number one?
Building a security first culture. That's extremely important as well. Now, again, security and compliance, obviously they go hand in hand, but then, having that integration when it comes to risk-based approaches, looking at proactive security practices in place at every layer of the operations which MSPs normally, tend to do. And then you use compliance frameworks around it to ensure and to prove or therefore refine all those practices which comes in place. That's extremely important, right? So, when you look at real protection, that sort of then multiplies towards building your client trust, ensuring that the threats what have been, out there, they have been managed effectively, and at the end of the day, being agile. That's important. So again, to sum it up, security has to be the first goal, but compliance should always go hand in hand. That's just a small little quick advice from my side.
Yeah, I fully back that as well. I think really important. And we often say to like SMBs, you can have all of the fancy tools in the world, but ultimately if you don't have the right culture and you're not educating people on how to stay safe, then someone's still going to click a link. Yeah. The culture is really important. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if we've got any questions come in, because I did see some popping off. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. This is a good one. And Sam, I'm probably going to come to you with this. So we've got NIS2 versus ISO 27001 versus Cyber Essentials /Plus. Which is most important, and do you really need them all or any others?
I think it very much depends on where you are in your journey. If you haven't done anything around information security, you don't necessarily have any kind of practice at the moment, Cyber Essentials is a fantastic starting point. It's a great set of technical controls that you can implement relatively easily that will make your business more secure. It's good. NIS2 obviously is a directive, and there are penalties around non-compliance with it. So if you are one of the industries that falls under the kind of umbrella of NIS2, definitely take a look at it, because that's really crucial to your business. What I think ISO 27001 does for both of those standards is give you an approach that you can take around, like you said, addressing a security first culture, putting in place a management system view owned across the business around how you're going to approach information security in a systematic way. It will address NIS2, and by doing so, you will cover off most of Cyber Essentials as well. There's some additional kind of detail in there, potentially, that the Cyber Essentials ASK 27 doesn't. So my view would be, if you are a reasonable sized organisation that already has a level of practice, 27001 is a great place to start. If you're right at the beginning, Cyber Essentials is a fantastic standard to get you off the ground.
Just to add to that as well, I mean, definitely I agree with that, Sam. But, when you talk about a small organization, probably 20, 25 users, right? So obviously for them to afford something like an ISO, probably it's a bit cost effective now. I'm not too sure about that side. But then when it comes to Cyber Essentials, I think basic organizations, smaller organizations can still rely on that, because Cyber Essentials base is there, which checks, which does your regular checks. That's important, and then it goes into Cyber Essentials Plus, and then follow on. So I think for smaller organizations, having Cyber Essentials, a low-cost option, and keeps your security in check.
Yeah, no, it is a good standard. We have on Cyber Essentials ourselves alongside the others.
That's really good, because a lot of the businesses that we work with, who ultimately work with SMBs, don't have those huge budgets for all the resource and manpower that goes into certifications. And I mean, I've stolen half of what I've just said from one of the questions in the chat, but I think it's probably answered that as well, because there was a question around for small MSPs, achieving all these certifications can be very costly. It can mean a lot of hands on deck. So what would you have suggested? But having touched on Cyber Essentials, and also, like you've both said, look at what's relevant for you and your market, as opposed to trying to go out and get them all. Like, be targeted, because ultimately they all drive the right, correct behaviors, don't they? So yeah, okay, so there was one more question in here, and Faisal, you can have this one.
Sure.
So someone wanted to ask how AI and automation can make compliance easier for them as an MSP while still improving security.
Okay, so from a certification perspective, because I come from that space, right? So having your own team certified through an AI-based certification, that obviously helps from one standard, because you have those necessary skills and training in place as well. But then today, when you look at a lot of these security applications, security controls, they all come embedded with AI in it as well, right? And obviously today, the reason why a lot of them implement, or a lot of them use AI, is because obviously it helps in speed in quickening up the process, or speeding up the process as well. In comparison to, let's say, regular automation in place. So I think today AI is the game. A lot of applications, a lot of individuals, they are heavily getting trained in AI. A lot of applications are embedded with AI as well. So there definitely AI helps. When it comes from a space which definitely helps within their own workflow. In fact.
Yeah, AI is, everyone's talking about AI, and I will always say this, hopefully I'm not offending anyone. I feel like people always talk about AI, but they're not really saying anything. But the reality is AI is embedded in pretty much everything we use now, isn't it? So it's still cool, it's still exciting, it's still something we can have a play with, but ultimately we're already living amongst it. But I think that automation piece for MSPs is really important, because that's how you can increase your profitability. If you can automate things behind the scenes, lean on the AI, lean on the machine learning, put your feet up, have an extra cup of tea every day. It's what we all want, isn't it? Make a bit more money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. I think that's all of our questions. If I've missed any, I will go through them after this finishes, and just make sure we haven't missed anyone out. And we will reach out if that's the case. But thank you, guys. Any last words before we wrap up?
Just to say, if you're interested in finding out more about what we do, you can find us at ISMS.online. And we also have an award-winning podcast, Fishing for Trouble, that just talks generally about security in the industry. So I'd recommend that to anyone who's interested.
Brilliant.
From my end, I come from the certification space. So definitely, if you all want to get qualified, if you want to get trained within the cybersecurity space, do reach out to EC Council. So we are primarily known for our certifications and trainings, and especially today with AI being there everywhere, our certifications we call it powered by AI as well. So yes, that definitely helps within your organization, even for your clients as well. We can definitely help you there too.
Brilliant. Thank you guys so much. I've just put on the screen how you can reach out to me and my team at Giacom. We are a team of security specialists. We're happy to talk to anyone and everyone. But if you wanted to reach out to Sam or Faisal as well, please feel free to use that email address, and we'll make sure we put you in touch. And we'll share some of the Compliance Matters blog and the other things you guys are doing. We'll make sure that's on the follow-up for today. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. See you all. Bye-bye.